Well, good morning, everyone, and how are you doing today? Hopefully you're having a good day. You having a good day, Fernando?
I'm having a good day.
What you eating?
Soup.
Soup for breakfast?
Chicken soup.
Okay, why not? Speaking of breakfast, a lot of breakfasts have eggs.
Yeah.
Breakfasts? Okay, anyways, a lot of, yeah, you get it. The reason why I bring that up, we have this yellow Corvette egg yolk. Anyways, so what's going into this guy is a couple cool things. We have the Pioneer 8201. He's just doing the 8200 portion. We are going to be adding a backup camera, but for the backup camera, we're going to do this guy here, which is the PCAM 150. And the reason why we're going with this is that he doesn't want a license plate. He wants to be able to mount it on the little lip in the center of the car. These guys mount nice up underneath the lip. Up here like this, it's nice and out of the way. It fits in this area. It won't get in the way of his license plate. He'll still be able to use that with no problem. And he really wants to keep his Corvette trim ring. We recommend going with this guy. The other thing we're gonna do is he wants Sirius XM. He does not have factory Sirius XM. Not that it would matter with this year Corvette. Now, the factory likes to put the Sirius XM here in the mirror if it has it. But something this old, you know, your tuner would either be underneath this guy here, or it would be over here in the corner. This doesn't have Sirius XM though, and it would be a two-prong Sirius XM. Sometimes those work, sometimes those don't. So in this case, what we're gonna do is we're going to add the Sirius XM, and we're going to make a mount that allows it to float right here underneath the convertible top door. It'll be on the outside of the convertible top in this area here so that we'll get good reception. Now, believe it or not, the Sirius XM antenna works pretty well up underneath the fiberglass like that. We've done a couple Corvettes like that, no issues. So we'll go ahead and do the same here. The plan is to use the bolt for the bracket, make like an L that comes off with a spacer that gets it really close up into the car. Awesome. Now, this is like cake and eat it too. This is why I'm more excited about this one. This is a first for us getting to use this. Let me show you this dash. So this dash here, as you see, it has the old school 10.5 radio. Yay. Obviously, you can fiberglass the heck out of this to get it to work. However, Metra makes this big box now. This is the DP-3021B. or Corvette Double DIN Dash Kit 9704 dash panel. That's right, they make a dash kit for this car. It's the whole piece. It's kind of like the Tahoe or the other big dash kits. I don't know how it's gonna work. This is the first one we're doing, but I'm really excited about it. We're gonna take you along on the journey. I think that's it. Anything else I forgot?
No.
Oh, yeah, of course. What wiring harness are we going to use? That would be nice to know, right? So we are going to use the Pack Audio ROEM BET1. This is to retain the Bose amplifier in the Vette. And then we're going to use the HDMI USB CBL from Pack so that he can have access to do Android Auto as well as the HDMI that is still on the back of the Pioneers. Yay, Pioneer. One day he wants to hopefully be able to stream his phone, but that's a whole nother headache. That's it, right, Fernando?
That's it.
So we're going to go ahead and get started on this. You excited?
Yeah, of course.
Let's get going. So when you're doing one of these Corvettes, and especially when you're adding a reverse camera, one of the things to keep in mind, behind the radio, there's no illumination wire in the radio harness. There are other places in the car, but they're not behind the radio, along with the reverse wire. What we like to do is when we're installing a backup camera, we're gonna grab the reverse wire back there. We're also gonna tap the illumination. That way the radio will dim when you turn on the lights, because at nighttime it would be extremely bright with the 8200, because it's that really nice bright screen. Sometimes you can find those wires in the passenger footwell where the body control module is, but it's way easier just to grab them in the back while you're connecting the camera. So Fernando's going to show you how to do that a little bit later. I just wanted to mention that before we forgot. But the thing I want to do is that box right there. I want to open that box and take a look at that kit because we've been so busy, it's been in, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Let's take a look at it before we get started taking everything apart, shall we? Great, let's go. All right, so right on the top we have some instruction manual and some plastic parts. This ought to be interesting. And then as you can see, it comes packed rather well. There's a whole bunch of paper in here. Which we're gonna keep because we wanna be able to put the factory dash bezel back in here. All right, so here's the actual kit. It comes in a giant bubble wrap bag. And then of course it has the foam over it. All right, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Cigarette lighter. We're gonna have to see if it'll fit there. Oh, it's got a lip. Oh, it unscrews. Ooh, you take this off. Yeah, so it'll probably fit because this unscrews here. So we can take this off, drill it bigger and mount it in there. All right, so the fit and finish of this is actually pretty nice. I mean, it's it feels like it's got like a rubberized paint on it. It's got the nice rubber tabbies for the cup holder. Well, the excitement's over with that. Go ahead and wrap it back up until later. And of course, we'll get some close-ups of it once it gets into the car. I just wanted to see what this thing looked like so we have an idea of what we're getting into. Now, basically inside we have this cool X bracket here. And we have my favorite left and right brackets that screw to the radio. So this looks like we'll be taking the dash on and off several times to line these up. Perfect. Comes with some screws, I'm guessing, for this bracket here. Now, if you'd like to see what these instructions are like up close, you can actually download this owner's manual. Just go to metraonline.com and you can type in your make, model, or just the model number for the kit, and you can get yourself a version of these before you actually buy the kit. So of course, the first couple pages are disassembly, and then it's showing us here we have to remove the shaded area, which is these two aluminum brackets on the dash. All right, so this is, we gotta pull out the air conditioner. Oh, I get it. So this is a template to drill new holes for the air conditioner. So we have to move the air conditioner down. All right, so this is the air conditioner relocation bezel. Awesome, so this is just a template. We're not even gonna use this other than to do this step here. Very cool. All right, so now that we've taken a look at the kit and we have a good idea of what's going on there, let's go ahead and get this dash apart. I'm moving this big box out of the way because it's gigantic. Now to start, we're gonna go ahead and get this out because Fernando needs to be able to fold this back down to get to the top. There's two Torx here on the top, and they are a T15. And then there's two more on the sides. Now on some of these, depending on the year, there's usually a push tab on the back also, so just check for that. This would also be where the Sirius XM module is located a lot of the times. Now we're gonna go ahead and close this. So on the Corvettes, I don't mind taking them apart with a drill, but I like to put them back together with a screwdriver, mainly because a lot of these pieces are very fragile. We're gonna start by removing this guy here, 4 Phillips screws. Now this Vette is actually in pretty good condition because most of the time what will happen is these silver guys here, these typically all break. That's why putting them back together with a screwdriver is a good idea. Now towards the back of the armrest, there's 2 covers. These guys right here, here, and here. Those are gonna pop off and there's 2 10mm underneath them. Now I would recommend you're gonna need a deep socket to get these out. Now what you wanna do is remove the cover where the active traction control is. It's just gonna pop off. Use your panel tool. Go ahead and pull up on it and unplug the 2 harnesses that are there. And underneath that, you're gonna go ahead and find 2 more 10mm bolts that we need to pull out. Now we're gonna wanna pull these seats forward like this so that we can get this big shroud, the transmission shroud armrest up. Just gonna pull back and then unplug the cigarette lighter. And then as you get it up, you'll be able to reach underneath and get the gas door. Go ahead and pull the whole thing out. All right, now we'll move on to getting the front portion of the dash out. Go ahead and pull up on your emergency brake. You're gonna want that in the up position. There's a cigarette coin tray, whatever. Go ahead and pull that out. And behind that is gonna be another Torx. Next to the key to it is the air conditioner sensor. Gonna go ahead and close off for that. Nice little panel tool. Now for the air conditioner cover, there's clips on the side. Go ahead and hit it from the bottom, you know, and it'll just kind of pop off. This is another one of those pieces that does like to break though. These tabs are just, be careful with this one for sure. Next to the cigarette lighter is a second Torx in the ashtray area. All right, so that was 3 Torx screws that were removed from this area here. So now we just kind of want to wiggle it. There is 2 clips here at the top. Okay, get that where it needs to be. Now we're gonna go ahead and put the car in gear and pull the gear shifter back. Pull your steering wheel all the way forward. Gently pull this out. Get to the point to where you can unplug the cigarette lighter. And gently slide it out of place. Now we have 4 7mm that we want to remove, 2 from the radio, 2 from the air conditioner. Let's take a look at some of these plugs real quick. So this is the plug for the cigarette lighter that goes behind the radio. It clips on like this. These 2 guys here, you just want to pry these open and then this will unclip. These are the other clips. This is the cigarette lighter in the center console here. This just has a clip on the top that you're gonna push down. This is for the gas door. It has a clip here on the bottom that you're gonna pry down and this slides out from the side. We have 1 clip on the back of the air conditioner. Push on the blue tab, just rock it back and forth. This guy right here, this will come out. Go ahead and pull the radio. On this one, there's 3 plugs behind it. This is the main power plug here. And of course, it has a GM mini pin antenna on it. These are the 2 brackets that we need to remove. They're aluminum. We're gonna cut those out. What we wanna do is make sure we relocate these harnesses up and out of the way. Fernando wants to check the positioning of the camera. In order to do that, we're using our CCTV camera tester. Let's take a look. So he's holding it where he thinks he wants to put it because he wants to go as far back possible so it's as inconspicuous. And what we got going on is we're just testing it to see how it looks.
Right there is good.
All right, so what he went ahead and did is he put tape up here so that we can go ahead and find our center point. We can drill our hole for the wire and then of course mount, pre-drill everything, take it down, screw it in, peel the tape off.
Correct.
Did you find the reverse wire?
Yes, I did.
Let's take a look.
The reverse wires are right here. You remove the whole panel, plug it.
4 screws?
Yep, 4 screws. The reverse wire is light green.
Now how would we test that?
We have a multimeter. We put in
DC?
volts, yes, DC.
That's the line with the dashes.
Okay, we grab our power and we grab our ground. As soon as you put it in reverse.
All right, let me go put it in reverse. All right, so we got voltage. Let me go put it in park.
Yeah, it's gone.
All right, so for the parking lights, what we're gonna do is we grab the tag light that's screwed up right here. There's a brown wire and a black wire. We've gone ahead and we have the lights on. We're getting 10 volts. Brown wire is the positive. Let me go shut the lights off. And now we have nothing. So we'll go ahead and add our illumination wire to that and get that into the car. So like we said, you can get both the reverse wire and the illumination right here. It makes it convenient to run it all the way forward. Now, you might be thinking the voltage was kind of weird on both those. Mainly the ground issue, we're not getting a good ground. To test for a really good ground in this car, you really need to crawl up underneath it and use the frame rail, which we were doing, but I have to hold the camera, so I couldn't hold it to the frame rail and do the test. So we got our 2 pieces cut out. Now what we need to do is go ahead and grab that X piece and drill our holes to relocate the air conditioner. So with an 1/8 inch drill bit, we're gonna drill these 2 holes here and these 2 holes here on the other side of the shifter for a total of 4 holes. And naturally, they want you to drill way too close to this mounting here. Awesome. And then we're done with this. We can take it back out, set it on the bench. So it looks like they say 1/8 inch holes, but they want these guys here to go into these holes on the top. The bottom one is for the screw, the top one is for this. Yeah, so it looks like we're gonna need a little bit bigger hole than an 1/8 inch. So measuring those arms, we found out that they are 1/4 inch. All right, now this should go back into place. All right, we have this mounted. What we want to do now is go over to the workbench and attach the wingies to the side of the 8200 so that we could get that in and we can do all the test fitting and measuring that we need so that that is done and out of the way before we start getting all the wires and harnesses and all that stuff in the dash. So on the back of the 8200, it has these guys hanging off, and there's this yellow black wire. It's called the mute wire. What you want to do is cap that off. You don't want that banging around inside the dash. If this happens to touch a ground, it's going to mute sound in the radio. Next, we're going to go ahead and break these up into groups. This is going to be front and rear, and this is going to be the video input and the audio input. The reason why we like to do that is at some point he's planning on moving into amplifiers, and that'll just make it easier down the road. All right, so now that we have those all taped up, we'll go ahead and start with adding in the side brackets. They have a right and a left indicator on them. So this is the right side. We'll go ahead and get these in. Now this does have a tapered hole on it, but I don't really think we need the tapered screws. I'm gonna try it first with regular screws, and then if we need to, I'll admit my mistake and we'll move on from there. Now typically when you're doing this style kit, these Pioneers have these lines on them right here. If you go to the front line, that's a good place to start. So that'll put us into the first hole. Go ahead and put a screw in there. We're only gonna do 2 screws for right now. We'll flip it over and do the other side. All right, let's take it back into the car and do a little test fitting. This may take a couple times. Now from the factory, this only has 2 screws that hold it in place. However, with this kit, there's 2 provisions for more screws here on the bottom. So we'll go ahead and drill 2 1/8" holes and screw those in as well. So now that we have this all screwed in, we want to make sure we have all the wires pushed up into the dash. Put the gear in, we'll pull the gear shifter back and do some test fitting. Now because we're going to be pulling this on and off, what I want to do is take all these things off of his key fob here. That way it'll fit easily over the hole. Alright, so the radio actually looks pretty good. What we need to do though is we need to move it back about 1/8 of an inch and then see if we can go up with it some, because there's a gap here on the top. We want to try to center that. Other than that, the air conditioner looks good and straight. I went ahead and removed this pocket too to make it a little bit easier to get in and out in the meantime, because we have all those harnesses down there. Alright, let's pull this back out. Alright, we finally got it. We probably pulled this thing out 10 times. Let's take a look at it, shall we? So the problem we were having is that right to left, there was small gap here, big gap here, so we had to drill the brackets, and then we had a problem with this side was up high, this side was down low, so we ended up having to sand the brackets, which I'll show you once we get it over to the bench, but I just wanted to let you see. Now it's centered, screen's gonna open no problem. It looks nice in the dash. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take this back out. We're gonna take a silver marker and draw around the circles so we know right where the screws need to go. We'll go ahead and let that dry for a second. Let's get it over to the bench and I'll show you what we ended up doing. Oh, the other thing too, when we were taking it in and out, like we said, we moved the ashtray portion of it where the power port is. We also went ahead and removed this guy right here. This is that little cup holder. Go ahead and take those things out when you're test fitting it like this. It'll make your job a little bit easier, because what you have is, see this bundle of crap here? This gets tucked in like this, but it naturally wants to roll that way. So when you're taking it in and out, the cup holder just kept getting in the way. I was having to move it. And after taking it out 3 or 4 times, I found that it was easier to just take it off. All right, let's head to the bench. So let's take a look at the radio and what we had to do to get it to fit. So on the passenger side, we went in about 1/8 on all 3 holes. And then we came down about 1/8 here where the silver tab goes in. On the driver's side, we actually went up 1/8 here, and that was all we had to do on this. Now, as far as where we ended up mounting it, we ended up lining up this here with the front edge of the radio itself. Then we ended up using this bolt and this bolt, bringing the trim ring down flush with the bottom of the radio. So now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and add in some other screws. So we're going to Dremel some of these holes out so we can fit 4 more screws in it. So there we go. We have all 8 screws in. This guy is nice and tight. We're done with the fitting of the radio, so we can go ahead and set this aside. We're gonna move on to other parts. So we have the HDMI USB cable. We have the cool little pocket. We're gonna go ahead and make this hole bigger so that this guy will go into here. Now to do that, we're gonna use this really big uni bit. Now you could use something like a Dremel and just keep going around in circles like this until you get it right. Either way, whatever works for you. So just go ahead and twist that and get it as tight as you can. And there we go, she's all set. Now this customer is gonna be doing Android Auto. We're gonna go ahead and put a 2 on here, because on the Pioneer, Android Auto is gonna go into USB 2. Now we'll go ahead and get this put back into the kit. Let's go ahead and take a look at this wiring harness and see what we got going on. This is the Pioneer, this is the pack harness. Naturally it comes with some instructions. All right, so looking at this, we have a set of RCAs. We have the bigger harness here. We have a clip. We have some capacitors in the harness itself. We've got a bunch of wires coming out of here, an accessory that needs to go off to somewhere because there is no accessory behind the radio. All right, let's take a look at the instructions. This was all designed a long time ago, to say the least. Things have changed a lot. This is the most current version of the instructions. So what they did is they wrote this back then, and then this is like an amendment to it. There's a lot of things going on here that we're gonna need and things we don't need. For example, on this harness here, there's a ton of wires. You have all the standard things that you might be looking for, like your yellow, your red, your black, and then you have some blues, you have an orange, and then you have your purples, whites, grays, and greens. But let's take each one of these and look at what it's doing, because there's a lot of things going on here that you have to see to understand, because this is kind of like a generic plug. First things first, the red accessory wire, this guy right here, as you see, it just goes off to this, meaning this has no way of creating an accessory wire. You have to go find one, which we'll go into the car and do in a little bit. Yellow, there's a yellow here, there's a yellow on the opposite side right here that goes into this plug. That's a wire we're going to use. Let's look at the black. Black is the same way. There's a black here, there's a black here, there's a black in this plug. We're going to use those. Orange, there's nothing on the other side of the orange, because we know that we're grabbing the illumination wire. So we actually don't need the orange wire in here. It goes to nothing. So we can just go ahead and remove that. There's two blue wires here, as well as a third blue wire on this end. If you follow this blue-white wire here, there's nothing on the other side of it. We're not gonna use that one. You can go ahead and cut that off. This blue wire, however, has a blue wire on the other side of it, and it goes over here into the plug as well as into this. It's a loop through. That's what this is. What this blue wire is going to hook up to your blue white wire from the radio. This is the amplifier turn on and the amplified antenna turn on. It's all one wire. This is what this is describing here on this page, is that you have to hook this up to the amplifier turn on, which on the radio is going to be the blue white. That'll turn on the Bose amplifier and will also activate the amplified antenna. There's not a two-wire hookup. Now this is a loop through, meaning that's what this Y solder point is here. It loops back through the unit. The reason why it does that is you have these RCAs and you have this. This would be if you wanted to add on an additional amplifier, because keep in mind, back when this came out, the 6-channel preamp output wasn't always the most popular option. We don't need this, and we don't need these RCAs, because if we were going to add on an additional amplifier, we would just use the RCAs coming out of the back of the radio. Now what we want to look at is the speaker wire. For that, we'll start with the purples, because they're right here. The first color is solid purple. There's a solid purple on the other side. We're going to use that. This is the passenger rear positive. Next to that is a purple red wire. There's nothing on the side of that. We're not going to need anything that has the red stripe. So the purple red we're not going to need, the gray red we're not going to need, the white red we're not going to need, as well as the green red. So we can go ahead and remove all of those. Now what that leaves us with is a solid green, a green with a black stripe, which is going to be the driver's rear. It leaves us with a white and a white with a black stripe, which is going to be the driver's front. And it leaves us with a gray and a gray black, which is going to be the passenger front. So these are the wires we have to work with here. Now on this plug, as we said, it has these capacitors, and it also goes off into this. This is to make the factory subwoofers work. This is to add a crossover to that smaller Bose speaker so that you don't blow them. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get this harness all taped up, and then we're going to solder this guy onto our Pioneer. At this point we can match up color for color. The only colors we're not going to have on there are going to be the orange white, which is illumination, which is what Fernando is running now, the purple white, which is reverse, which there again is what we're running. The pink is vehicle speed sense. We're not going to need that. This will work in what's called hybrid mode, which allows it to work without a speed sense, and it actually works better that way for the most part, at least here in Florida it does. And then we have the light green emergency brake wire. Each radio is going to be a little different on that green wire, so make sure you check to see what your radio needs for the green wire. Let's get soldering. Alright, so we have our wiring harness all done, taped up, soldered together. Let's look at what we have here. So this is the camera feed here. This is what Fernando just ran in. So we have the power and we have the RCA. That basically loops up here. This is going to plug into the back of the radio along with the main powering harness. I went ahead and added in a relay too, because there again, we're going to need a random accessory somewhere in the car that we're going to have to tap into. And I don't want to rely on that accessory to power up the radio and the backup camera. We'll go ahead and let the constant 12 volts from the radio do that. That's why we added a relay. The relay is going to allow us to just use this accessory that we're going to tap into as a trigger, just a trigger. It's not actually going to do anything other than turn on the relay, and then the constant 12 volts that is supplied from the harness here will go ahead and give us power for the accessory that we're going to use. If you guys want to know how to wire up a relay, we do have a video on that showing you how to do that. We've got it all taped up. I'm going to go ahead into the car now, because what I want to do is I'm going to add the USB 1 and the aux jack into the glove box. So I'll go ahead and put some flex loom on on this, as well as we're gonna crawl down into the passenger footwell and figure out where our accessory is to turn on and off the relay. Alright, so we're down here in the passenger footwell. The accessory wire in this car is orange. And now how we figured that out is we actually have access to a database that tells us stuff like that. There's another place called Bulldog Security, and typically on there they have stuff like that. So if you guys are, it's like bulldogsecurity.com or something like that, and they usually list information like this. Now we want accessory, not ignition. And just to tell you the difference between the two is accessory is just that. It's an accessory, it's made to power accessories in the car. And how it reacts is when you're starting the car, the accessory wire turns off through crank. So it shuts off all the accessories, which allows the car to have all its power to start. Ignition stays active through crank. So as you're starting the car, it stays on. That's what powers actually up the starter. We don't want it on while it's going through crank. We want it off, so we're finding accessory. If you want ignition, it's pink. If you want accessory, it's orange. So there's two places where you can get said wire. One is at the key. Right there by the radio, there's a big harness, this one right here. That one right there, that's attached to this key cylinder that's right there. You can grab the orange wire, you're good to go. For us, we have no reason to pull that off because you'd have to drop the bottom portion of the dash. We don't need to do that. The fewer panels we can take apart in this car, which we've taken a ton of them apart, the better. There is a second location, and that is right here. Now, since we're already running all our wires up this way for the backup camera, we can go ahead and we can grab the wire right here as it goes through the firewall. So this big fat orange wire right here is the accessory. That's the one we want. Now, how do we test for that? So grounds in these cars are always a pain because there's very little grounding anywhere. What we're gonna do is, there again, just like before, we're gonna go ahead and put our meter on DC, line with the dots. We're using the smart module box here. This one, this shell is a ground, so we're using that. Now we're gonna go up and put our probe into the wire. Go ahead and turn it on. There you go. Go ahead and turn it off. That's the accessory. Now all we have to do is tap our red wire into that and we'll be great. If you want to put a fuse here, it's a good idea because that is the main accessory wire. So there's a big fuse underneath the hood and your little 18 gauge is not going to be enough to, you'll melt it if it, you know, so we're gonna put a fuse there, no problem. So we have our wire connected here. The fuse is right here above the fuse box, so it's in the general vicinity. It runs along here between the two, and of course it attaches our loom here, which has all our other wires in it that we ran. This is where the camera and all that are. Inside the glove box we have the USB 1 and the aux jack. They're zip tied up to this harness that's running through the glove box. Fernando is just finishing up the antenna mod, as you've been watching. Let's go and take a look at that. So as we said we were gonna do, we used that bottom bolt there to make a bracket. We actually moved the GPS antenna there too, so those both mount up into here, up underneath the fiberglass. Now we're just using this factory wire to zip tie our harness to. The only thing we have left to do is the Bluetooth mic and running that wire. So we'll go ahead and get these few things done, and then we'll actually take it outside, make sure the Sirius XM and the GPS and all that stuff work, pull it back inside, put it together. All right, so we have the passenger footwell and all its pieces put back together. As you can see here, the running board's back on. My feet show that we're in the, that's all done. What we're doing now is running the wires into the dash. So here's our accessory wire that we ran, and here's our plug side. Now, we've talked about this briefly before. We're going to talk about it again. This is a male, this is a female. The female is fully insulated. The male obviously is not. The reason why, this is the car side, so this is going to have accessory when the key turns on. The same is true for these guys right here. This is going to be the illumination, this is going to be the reverse. We want to make sure that the female side is on the car side. That way, if we unplug it and this is banging around in the car, it's not going to short out. Our harness side will have, there again, the males on them to keep it safe. The other thing that we needed to talk about real quick is you're gonna need an antenna adapter to do this. This is the BAA4, which is the standard GM micro to standard antenna adapter. This is just gonna plug in. The one that it comes with, the factory, looks a lot like it. This guy right here. It's just smaller compared to this. The two harnesses we need to plug in are this guy right here, as we said earlier. This one is going to plug in to here, just like this. And then of course the main wiring harness. So once those are all plugged in, this little guy right here is not going to be used. So we don't have to worry about that. If you're doing Sirius XM, We went ahead and mounted the Sirius XM tuner here on the other side. The way they're designed is they actually have provisions for zip ties. So it's actually zip tied into the dash here using the 2 provisions that it has. And then of course we loomed the wire that's coming around the back side of it. Now Fernando's just finishing putting in the Bluetooth mic. It's gonna go up here by the mirror. This is it right here. We'll get that into the dash and we'll start putting everything back in. All right, so the time has come. We're gonna go ahead and get the radio in. All we need to do is plug everything in, and then like we said, we're gonna line it up with the silver that we drew onto the kit. When you're plugging these things in, always start with what is longest and work your way to what is shortest as far as the cables go. You don't want to plug the short stuff in first. In this case, our main harness is gonna be the longest. We'll go ahead and get that plugged in along with the backup camera, and then we'll just work our way into the dash. What's the weather like today?
It's currently part.
So the preliminary tests are good. We're gonna go ahead and get it out and test the Sirius XM, make sure that works. That is kind of important. That's also where the GPS's antenna is, so we'll make sure that works as well. So the GPS is telling us in the right location. What about the Sirius XM? All right, so there's the Sirius XM. All right, let's get it back in and put it back together. From right here, you can't even tell there's a backup camera. We'll step back some, you can kind of see it. We're at my height, you can't even tell. We'll get close up into this. So there is the backup camera. So we just finished putting the center console back together after we pulled it in from testing all the stuff we needed to test outside. So as you can see, armrest is in, dash is back together. Let's take a closer look at the dash. Fernando has the backup camera on right now. Take a look at that image. As you can see, it matches up really nice. The radio fits in there really good. Hit eject. Comes down with no issues. It's not hitting anything. Looks good. What do you think?
It looks good.
Now, as far as like Metra kits go, this one looks and fits really, really good. So if any of you guys out there with this car are considering doing this kit, I fully endorse it. It's a nice kit, fit and finish on it, very nice. Looks very factory. The customer who was standing here the whole time we were working on it loves the way it looks. Is pretty happy with. Now, anytime you are working on one of these older vets, just go slow. There's no hurry to get this radio out of the dash because these cars are older and they do break. So take your time, go slow, you'll be good. All right, guys. So if you have a Corvette this model year and would like to do a double din in it, have no fear. Go ahead and pick yourself up one of these cool Metra kits, get it put in, and rock on. It's pretty awesome. This one is done, as we like to say.
On to the next one.
What he said.